Hi, my name is Evans, and I'm the coordinator or the host for Men's Health Dialogue. And why Men's Health Dialogue is we want to bring out some of the issues that long the history of men's health we've not yet seen. And why I say this is because we often do not hear from men about issues that are bothering them. So this dialogue, of course, we'll be having such dialogue on YouTube, Facebook, just to make sure that we enlighten the world about what men's health dialogue is and what we can do to help men come out from the dark where they are in terms of their mental issues. So today I'll be interviewing a very good young man here called Arif, and he'll introduce himself. My name is Ivan Sopon. So I will just turn over to my my co-host, my friend here.
Hi, my name is Arif, and we are coming to you from Lethbridge, Alberta.
So I will, we will begin the whole interview today. Of course, it's a dialogue, so I will start the whole interview with a quote from one of the world's best, well-known, renowned female artists. Her name is Ali Shaharazad. So she once said something about men, and I want to read before we start our interview. And she said, and I quote, "A family is like a nation, and every nation must have one head of governor, of which the rest of the people cooperate to be successful. But where there is no head of governor, there is anarchy or chaos." And this is her quote. Case quote. So I will further to ask a question. Well, this is my question. Do you think that most of the problems we have in most black homes is the issue of not allowing and accepting black men to govern the family or the families in Calgary, in Lethbridge, in Alberta, and in Canada?
Yeah, Evans, I think that's an excellent issue to raise, especially in the society we live in, and because a lot of us are immigrants. So we are used to in our culture back home, whether from the Indian subcontinent or the African continent. Generally, socially, black men or men in general have been accepted as the head of the families. They're generally the decision makers, and usually the direction of the family that's gonna take, that's usually determined by them. So sometimes I feel that once the roles are reversed, women sometimes try to take over the head of the family position, and then it does affect the male in a different way. And other times, for whatever reasons, men give up that leadership position on their own. But yeah, it's something to talk about, that if there's a change in gender roles, how does it affect men? Because I think from a masculine perspective, it's either through our upbringing or through years of, the way the society ran, men have been the patriarchal head of the family.
So that is something that is being practiced in most of the countries, most of the tribes, most of the cultures, even to your own culture. So that's what you are trying to confirm to me, that, well, yes, men culturally they are the head of the family in terms of the patriarchal practices that we know. So I'll chip in my research myself. I did my thesis, and one aspect of my thesis also tried to confirm what this woman was saying. And I found out from my research that when immigrants, which includes blacks, Asians, whatever, but specifically, I was talking about African immigrants. So when I found out from my research that when African immigrants comes to Canada, especially, I don't know the case of US, most often we find the females or the women getting jobs before the men. And why that is an issue, or why that is so, I do not know. Maybe future research will look into it. So when they get the jobs before men, they begins to roll up a different method of leadership. One, they want to be the head of the family. They want to have the big say because probably, maybe because they earn much money than the men. So I found that the women here, I use the phrase known as they grow horns. And horns here, they begins to be like, yeah, I'm the man of the family. So do you think this is an issue to men?
This is an interesting question. Yeah, I think it's an issue in some ways because, and I will support this. Whatever your research has found, that generally when immigrants do move here, especially if the husband and the wife moves at the same time, usually the women end up finding a job quicker than men. Doesn't matter, we're not going to go into details about what type of job who's getting, but generally the first paycheck, a lot of the time that comes in, usually it's made by the lady. And yes, I think from one perspective, some people, a lot of the people respect money. So automatically the person who makes money, money talks, I guess that's a phrase to put it. So then the person who's making the money becomes the head of the family. That's the assumption. But at the same time, your money and your leadership are not the same. They should not be tied together. If that would be the case, then only the richest man in the country would be the president. The president, the politician, leader of each family, right? But at the same time, like even with as much we talk about the corruption of politicians, which is not today's talk, we, as a nation, we do appoint some people to be the leader, whether of a city, the mayor, or governor of a state, or the president, prime minister of the country, king, queen. Well, those are different positions. But usually we elect someone who we think will serve us the best, right? And then because the family is very similar, very small unit, right? The husband and the wife, and then once you have come to a new country, you're trying to adapt. There are challenges, culturally, religious, food is a challenge. Yeah, and then, some women obviously think that because they make the paycheck, so now they're the head of the family. And yes, yes, they can take a leadership role, but I think especially a family is a lot more of a partnership, right? Because, if we really want to get into it, maybe that is the case today. In 2020, the family that moves in, the wife got a job first. But let's say they got married in 2015. Situation might have been different.
Yeah.
It was let's say the husband was making the paychecks. And because he was making the paychecks, and then culturally, let's say they came from Ghana, or Nigeria, or Egypt, anywhere, or even Bangladesh or India, right?
Yeah.
The husband was making decisions and then, telling the woman directing the women, right, how to run the family. But yeah, growing horns, that's a good analogy.
So, I just want to put in something there. So, we are not saying that if I am the man and I agree that my wife should be the head of the family, that is wrong. That's not what we are saying there. We just want people to understand that.
That's a good point.
But we are also saying that oftentimes women want to know why men are quiet on so many issues. And somebody will tell you, yeah, I spoke to him and he doesn't talk. Inwardly, men are dying, but out, they begin to show that, nah, I'm okay. So we are trying to come out with some of these issues to see how best we can solve them. So why do you think men are silent on these issues, but they are crying within?
Oh, I think it's part of our identity, the masculine identity, right? The strong, silent type male that we talk about, or the men who are communicating. They're more open to discussions. I think if a man sees himself as the head of the family, generally, I think he wants to shelter the rest of his family members from his
Yeah.
troubles.
Mhm.
So let's say whether he got laid off at work, his hours are being cut, he took a pay cut, right? He doesn't want to tell it to the wife or even the children, especially, because it's going to put unnecessary mental pressure on them. They're going to start panicking.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's more of a protective instinct
Hmm.
to save them, not to save them, but let them enjoy their life as it is.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why mostly they are silent.
Yeah, but I think, at least when I talk from my cultural perspective, right, when guys get together, we talk.
Yeah.
Whether over tea or coffee or just guys' party, for example, right, a barbecue or whatever. We will generally talk with each other. We will share things which we will not share with our family,
Yeah.
wives, girlfriends, children, or even our parents.
Why is that so?
I think it's the bro code, where guys we will keep each other secret kind of, but at the same time I think we feel as a male, another male will understand our problems.
Oh.
Whether now let's say, and yeah, it's a good point that if in some family units where if the guy decides okay, the woman should be the head of the family, then that's his decision, right? But at the same time, like only a guy will understand another guy,
Yeah.
because just like similarly, a pregnant woman
Mm-hmm.
will understand another pregnant woman's issue,
Yeah.
right? Right. So we won't, as a guy, I don't understand it. We will not understand it.
Then I'll chip in a question, because there is one quote that I found in my research that if that is the case, that men will understand men, so we cannot really share this issue that is bothering us to our female partners and so on, then the case is, the quote from my research states that even if the man want to, because the woman is making most of the income at home, and she is acting as a head of the family, the man has tended to be a woman at home, cooking, taking care of the children and so on. So the commanding power is coming from up, and then the man is taking it from down. So, and to the extent that when it's time for duties in the room, when I say duties in the room, when it's time for the bed issues, where machineries take over, I know what I'm talking about here, you know it. So when it's time for that, especially, well, let me quote it straight, for when it's time for sex, the man sometimes, according to him, he said he has to even beg the wife. Because I don't know if it's power that has gotten so much into some of our women, or some of the black women, or some of the immigrant women when they get here. Do you see this to be the reason being that of what the country offers women, or is because of environmental changes, or is their nature that is showing?
That's a difficult question. I think there are so many issues at work. I think the Western system, this is, I don't know if they call it postmodernism or something of that sort. They like to challenge everything.
Yeah.
That's just the system we currently live in at the moment. Back home, we have quote unquote the traditional system, the traditions still living. So for example, the guy generally is expected to take care of his parents, his old parents, right? So similarly, he's also expected to take care of his family, his wife and children. Once we move to this side of the world, we don't see that close family bonding anymore. And then they try to push, it's also called an individualistic versus a collective culture, right? Yeah. So it's more individualistic here. So I think that turns it into an issue where people are expected that, hey, you have to take care of yourself, right? At the cost of sometimes even your own family. And, like husband versus wife, husband versus wife versus children, right? And what I feel, what is missing in this element is something called obedience, right? Like back home, we your parents will whoop your butt, right? Which over here they'll call child abuse. But we know that if they didn't whoop our butt, we would not be going to school, we would not have an education, we would not have a job, we would not have a family, we would just be bums, right? So sometimes these things are necessary. So even though they'll whoop me, right? We won't be going to the police and complaining, hey, my daddy and mommy did this, right? So similarly, I think when it comes to, for example, the bedroom issues you're talking about, right? And then, well, once you have the bedroom issues, and then we also have extramarital affairs and all that stuff, which happens. But if a woman is definitely acting like that, I mean, it can also go both ways, right? Right? If the roles are reversed, the man can say that, hey, I am making money, I don't like you tonight, I'll go find someone else. That doesn't help. So I think something I mentioned was it's a partnership, right? Going back to my example, like 5 years ago, when the man was the head of the family, was he doing the same stuff? Was he withholding, or was he demanding? Right? Just because the roles are reversed and now you have money, that doesn't mean the fundamental things have changed. Right? 2020, the wife has a job, the husband is unemployed. Right? 2021 or even 2022, let's say we'll give them 2 years. We'll get 2022. The roles might be reversed, right? The husband finally finds a job he's looking for.
Yeah.
Right? And then if the same thing that's happening to the husband, right? If he passes that back on, he passes that off. That okay, you told me to do the dishes and take care of the babies. Now I want you to do that. I mean, it's just gonna be like more fights.
It seems from what you're saying, then I believe that it's not the case of only women. Well, though we have some of the issues coming from women, we also have the men also playing a role, because when there's that power struggle between both parties, then whoever gets the power, it seems to be like, well, I have to show my manhood or my womanhood, whatever, at home. But we want to also try to let the men know that issues that are bothering them, you can't keep it. I think it's better you share with your partner than to keep it, because when you keep it, it's not going to solve the issue, it's going to worsen the issue. So exactly. You either choose to be a man to bring it out on the table and try to solve it. That is my policy. Be a man to bring the issue on the table. You're not going to die bringing the issue on the table, but when you keep it, you're going to die. Because there are more statistics showing that men are dying more than women. Why? Why is this an issue? Men were created before women. So I think men should live more, but that is not the case today, because of so many things happening and so many things that men are keeping for themselves. So do you think this affects men's mental health?
Oh, absolutely.
How?
Not in a good way. I think especially when it comes to a marriage, right? You also want to respect your marriage and your wife.
Yeah.
So you don't want to like backbite against your wife to your friends, which we sometimes see. Yeah. Right? Because it's still your wife. You're gonna go back home to her. It's still the mother of your children, right? So like when I said earlier, right, that like guys share stuff between guys. I think it's mostly concerning to like, you know, work and finances and that kind of stuff, you know, houses, cars, investments, that kind of stuff, you know, businesses. But when it comes to, like, for example, marital bedroom issues, what's going on in the house, usually a guy has to be pushed pretty far in order to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. So, and this is one thing that you cannot also share with your parents. Because let's say, hypothetically, if this was a love marriage, right? Your mom comes back, I told you not to marry that girl. Or it's your decision. We're not going to help you, right? But at the same time, you feel that, okay, I mean, we are a family, we should be able to sort it out. And then, like, you raise one issue, the woman raises another issue, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, that obedience, or even more importantly, the compromise part, right? the guy will not compromise. Well, we have a tendency not to, but in our defense, we do recognize when we made a mistake.
Okay.
Maybe not right now, within 5 minutes, but once you have cooled down, we recognize it, right? But in the heat of the moment, when an argument starts, and it's only your fault, back and forth, right? You cannot talk to anybody about that. And once you're inside the house, your kids are hearing that too. And I mean, it's not good for your kids to hear that, but at the same time, you cannot keep quiet. And then the escalation of the fight just goes on and on.
Yeah.
And who knows, sometimes the authorities have to get involved and all that stuff. And then we have a whole drama with the legal system. But it's something very difficult to talk about.
And what I found out from my research too is about such issue, why men become violent. You could see because of the power struggle that they go through, they feel like one, there is some kind of shield for women, and so you see some of the men talking about some of these issues like, I nearly slapped her.
Right.
Like, because they feel like their culture is brought down, and then maybe the women they've taken a new stand in culture, which is a culture shock to some of the men. So in return, they begins to act. If they have no means to answer their questions, they act violently, verbally.
Right.
So they go always out, and I think these are some of the contributors to most of this violence we see in the families, because of this power struggle between leadership at home. So to me, I have one but last question that I will ask concerning this issue of governance that the woman was talking about. So do you think it's because of lack of respect for the man or for the woman that this issue of struggle, I make much money, now I'm the one doing this? Ideally, men should be the head of the family, according to where I'm coming from. So somebody should not get me wrong. If you choose, as I said earlier, if you choose to let your wife be the head, that's okay. But ideally, do you think it's because of a lack of respect that this issue is growing every day in the families?
Yeah, I think it's a lack of respect and a lack of understanding. It's a combination of many things. So, for example, again, let's say we take a new immigrant, or even an immigrant who's been here for a few years.
Yeah.
So, in this case, we'll take the traditional route. The husband works full time, right? The wife is a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
They have a couple of kids, right? Now, we who live on this side of the world, we know how difficult it is to make money, right? It's not growing on trees, unlike what other people think. With that limited income, right? The guy is supposed to, let's say they have a decent home, they're renting and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, the woman sees that, okay, someone else has a better Facebook life. And what I mean by that, they have a bigger house, they have a nicer car, right? The husband and the wife, they're going on vacations, putting up selfies, right? In that respect, I think this also plays as an indirect factor in influencing the lady to be like, why can't I have that life, which she's seeing?
Yeah.
And obviously if you're unhappy regarding that, and if you keep needling the guy, right, then we have the issue where like, I'm doing the best I can, right? Most guys are doing the best that they can. Nobody chooses to live in poverty. No guy wants to go and live in the shelter.
Yeah.
Go live in the shelter with the husband and with his wife and children, right? So I don't know. Like, I think it is like, I mean, there is a culture shock. You're expected to adapt, but in your heart, you also want to hold on to some of the values you grew up with, because those values have carried you so far, and they're good values. It's not selfish to want to take care of your parents. It is not selfish if you want to send them money, right? If it's not selfish, for example, if my son or my daughter chooses to leave home until they get married, let's say until the age of 26, right? These are good values. But yes, I think one of the previous things you pointed out, that the domestic violence that happens, and yeah, in COVID now, during COVID times now, it is a big issue. Yeah, a lot of guys are unable to express their feelings.
Yeah.
There's frustration. When you used to be able to go to work, you'd be away from the wife for, let's say 9 to 10 hours, and you had an outlet. Now see here, but now once you're cooped up inside, you're unable to express, and then you accidentally do something which you regret, obviously. I feel, again, I mean, I understand the situation the guy falls in. I'm not saying the violence is the right response. Okay, let me make that very clear. But I would say that I understand where he's coming from.
Okay.
Right?
So, with all that you've said, do you have any take-home message for guys, for whoever is watching, concerning the issue we are talking about right now? Because what we want to really do on this dialogue is to make sure that we point out some of the issues, and then we try to establish some of the ways that we can help ourselves as men. Because if you continue to keep and keeping some of this issue and this hate in you, you live with the same person, you move with the same person, you sleep with the same person, but yet still you keep so many things in your head that are negative or that is bothering you. Why don't you put it on the table for a discussion? And that's why I believe women want to know. But on the issue of this leadership, I believe that it is better for both parties to understand themselves about who is to take the mantle of leadership at home. So that is one thing I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Though it affects masculinity, according to my research, it affects masculinity because men want to be men at home.
Yep.
But I believe, in as much as possible that men want to be men at home, they should try to bring the tables. They should try to bring the issues on table. It's not about the woman is making this amount of money, and so as I said earlier on, they blow their horns. They blow their horns at home, and then everybody begins to run. But I believe when they comes into agreement, of course, as a woman said, every nation there is a head of leadership. Even in the animal kingdom, there is a leadership.
Mm-hmm.
How much more in the family? So there shouldn't be that hate at home. That is what I can say about this issue. Though we will continue this topic, we'll be dialoguing on this issue in so many ways. What is your take-home message for the viewers?
I think it has to be a dialogue at home for the husband and the wife to figure out who's gonna take care of what affairs,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, for example, someone has to teach the kids. Once they come home, homework, all that stuff, right? Cooking is a big issue. Laundry is a big issue, right? Paying the bills is a big issue. If you want to take a vacation, someone has to budget for it. Separate the money. If you want to go back home, for example, tickets are expensive, right? Those are thousands of dollars we're talking about. It's something that has to be shared, and I think back home we have a support system,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, you have your uncles and aunts and cousins and this and that, and over here there's basically nobody. It's you and your husband, wife, kids, that's it. And the kids, you're taking care of them. It's not supposed to be the other way around. So I think you gotta let something go to
Mhm.
get something back,
Yeah.
right? So similarly, if in this issue, going back to your original question, if the woman is the bread earner at the moment, all right, then instead of blowing their horns, they need to figure out, okay, my husband is taking care of this, right? I need to help the way I can, because this is not going to be her life for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
Right? I told you, in 2 years, let's say the guy finds a job and he makes more than her. Money will change, But whoever makes the money should not determine how your family operates, right? COVID time, people are getting laid off,
Yeah.
right? Today you have no jobs, tomorrow you'll find another job.
Mhm.
Life is gonna change,
Time
right?
changes.
Right? And you know, there's so many issues we can talk about. You have a good business, now your business is doing good. Tomorrow it might not be that good. So how do you do that? So I think when it comes to like family issues, right? I think it has to be a shared leadership somewhat.
And I.
But and it has to be between the male and the female to figure
Correct.
out who wants to do what, right? And just like I said that if the woman is blowing their horn, that's not helpful. Same thing applies to the guy as well,
Yeah.
right? If you're making good money and now you have a work date with a female colleague, that doesn't help, right? You gotta give your wife the respect she deserves as a mother of your children.
Yeah.
So it's a back and forth, but yeah, some things. I mean, like I said, you have to open up to your wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the adult thing to do.
Yeah.
When we were young and 5 years old, right, we would keep quiet and throw a tantrum. It's good when you're 5. At 15, not so great. But when you're 35, you definitely can't do that. You gotta grow up,
Yeah.
and that's whether you want to like it or not, right? It's part of it. So you gotta talk, and then you'll talk to your guy friends obviously for regarding other stuff. But when it comes to, and especially like your bedroom issues, right, it has to be addressed. Like we are living in a hypersexualized society,
Yeah.
right? It's not good to hold back from each other, right?
Okay. So in effect, I believe that women should know their men, and men should know their women,
Oh, absolutely.
and so that issues that are pertaining to family, relationship, partnership, and so on. If you don't know your man, why are you with him,
Yeah, exactly.
or why are you with her? So I believe that it's a mutual kind of benefit. We should benefit from each other by bringing issues on table
Mhm.
for a dialoguing where issues can be solved. And I believe that if it's between you and I, but not the third person coming in, a friend,
Yes.
it's going
absolutely.
to create a heat.
Mhm.
In most of the cases, somewhere you see why these issues escalate, you begin to see that there is some third party in, and you go to tell this person, yeah, my man, I can control my man, he's just soft, and so on. The same person will go back to tell your husband. Then your husband begin to grow so many anger inward, and then behave negatively towards you. Do not know. Maybe you've taken the leadership, but it's causing an issue. So I believe that this issue is going to continue. We are not going to stop there,
Mhm.
because it's a big issue that is really disturbing men and their mental health. And we want to also try to come up with so many recommendations to help why men should not harbor some of these issues, but they should bring it on table as we've said it here. So I really thank you very much, because we will be continuing this issue in different angles. I will be talking to a lot of people from different places, and then we also seek the views of different cultures, different countries, and see what is the issue here, what is the issue there, bringing everything together. How best can we help our men? And I think women should also contribute on the table. You can also share your views on our page, on Facebook, comment, and so on, so that we can better know for each other the best way to go in the midst of this crisis.
Absolutely.
That's why I'll thank you very much. On our next topic that we'll be discussing, on our next topic that we'll be talking about, we will try to bring one of the big issues on table. We do not know what kind of partnership do our women like. Do they like strong, silent type kind of man, or they like the communicative one? The women should let us know what they want. So we'll be talking about such issues. We have so many issues coming on table. We want to try to uproot some of the issues that we think is bothering men. So of course you can be following us and then get some of the information. You can also share your views, as I said earlier on. So thank you very much for your time, and then we will see you once again in our subsequent topics that we'll be talking about for such a big information you've given to us.
Thank you.
We'll give it a
Evans.
punch. Thank you.